I woke up that morning with a mixture of anxiety and nostalgia. It was the day of the old friends' reunion, and anticipation hung in the air like a sweet but familiar scent of memories. Looking at myself in the mirror, I observed every detail of my reflection. The brown hair, still straight and shiny, the blue dress that I meticulously chose for the occasion. I wanted to be perfect. Every time I thought about Sophie, a pang of insecurity invaded me. She was always the most popular, the most beautiful, the one who attracted all eyes. I remembered the times when we were inseparable, when we shared secrets, laughter, and dreams. What would have changed so much? As I got ready, memories came back like flashes. Endless afternoons of conversation in the park, plans for the future, and promises that nothing would separate us. However, time, like a sneaky thief, seemed to have taken away not only our friendship, but also the simplicity of our days. The last time we met, Sophie was radiant, newly married to a millionaire. The boast in his eyes was undeniable, and I could barely hide my frustration. I arrived at Sophie's house, a true palace, surrounded by a lush garden. The door opened and there she was, stunning in a dress that looked like it was custom-made. Her smile was contagious, but I knew that behind that happy facade, there was a rivalry that I couldn't ignore. Sophie's warm welcome made me feel a mix of welcome and discomfort. "Clara, glad you came. I missed you," she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug, but the coldness in her gaze didn't go unnoticed. "Thank you, Sophie. I was looking forward to seeing you too," I replied, trying not to let the tension show. The room was full of friends and acquaintances who, like Sophie, now lived in a world of glamour. While everyone was talking, I couldn't help but feel out of place. The glitz and ostentation were palpable. The table was full of sophisticated delicacies, and I, for a moment, wondered if I belonged to that universe. During the conversation, Sophie started talking about her achievements. With each word, a part of me cringed. "You won't believe it, Clara. We just bought a vacation home in Malibu. It's crazy, you need to see it." She laughed, a laugh that sounded like an echo of superiority. "Wow, that's amazing," I murmured, trying to hide the discomfort that was growing inside me. I'm thinking about launching a sustainable clothing collection." Sophie frowned, and a sarcastic smile appeared on her lips. "Sustainable clothes. How interesting. I hope you can make this happen. Maybe one day you will have a store as beautiful as mine." The mocking tone was clear, and my heart sank. "Yes, I'm really excited about this," I replied, my voice now a little firmer, but feeling insecurity invade my being. What was supposed to be a reunion between friends turned into an emotional battlefield. The conversations continued, but the lightness of the meeting had disappeared, replaced by a tension that hung in the air. The sparkle in Sophie's eyes, which had once been just the light of friendship, was now a reflection of something more. It was a reminder that, somehow, I had become invisible to her. When I left the house, I felt exhausted. With a heavy heart, I started the car and drove through the city, the streets seeming to go on forever. What had happened to our friendship? Why did everything seem so different? I needed answers, but more than that, I needed to find Clara, who had lost herself among dreams and comparisons. When I entered the house, the door closed behind me like an echo of what I had just experienced. The soft light of the room enveloped me, but I couldn't feel welcomed. Sophie's laughter still rang in my head, her words cutting like a knife. "Clara, are you still at that small company? How sweet." The irony in his voice hit me like a punch in the gut. I felt my self-confidence crumbling, and what was once a day of reunion turned into a nightmare. I left my bag on the table and went to the window, looking at the street. The city lights shone brightly, as if reminding me of what I didn't have. I was overcome by a wave of uncertainty. What am I doing with my life? Thought. The achievements that once seemed solid to me now seemed small and insignificant next to the glamour that Sophie displayed. She had married a millionaire, while I was struggling to get my project off the ground. The memory of all this made me feel a lump in my throat. It was like I was trapped in a maze of doubts and insecurities. But before the sadness completely took over me, I decided I needed to talk to someone. The only person who could give me some clarity was my mother. I took out my cell phone and called her. "Hi, Clara. How are you, dear?" My mother's voice was always a balm. "Hi, Mom. I'm not very well. I had a reunion with Sophie and... well, she was kind of cruel." The sadness escaped through my words. "Ah, my daughter, what did she say?" I could hear the care in her voice. "She made comments about my work, as if it were something unimportant." I felt so bad, so small. A heavy sigh left me. "Clara, don't let her opinion undermine your worth. You have so much to offer the world. Remember your achievements. You are strong and determined. Look at everything you've been through and overcome," my mother said, and I felt a comforting warmth in her support. "It's easy to say, Mom. Sometimes it feels like I'm stuck in a never-ending cycle, trying to make things work. You have always been a fighter, and if you feel like you have a dream, something you want to achieve, then go for it. Don't compare yourself to others. Everyone has their own time and their own path." His voice was firm and encouraging. "I know you're right. I just need some time to collect myself and get back on my feet. I need to remember who I am, don't I?" I said, beginning to feel a wave of determination rising within me. "Exactly, Clara. Use this as fuel. What have you always wanted to do? What makes you happy?" I looked out the window again, the bright city inspiring me. I always wanted to work in fashion. I remember when I dreamed of creating my own clothing line. Sustainable fashion, something that would make a difference. Then start. Take the first step. You can do this, and I will be here to support you. After hanging up, a new energy pulsed through me. I couldn't let Sophie's contempt get me down. I took out my notebook of ideas and started writing down everything I wanted to do. Every word written was like a step towards my true passion. The idea of creating a sustainable fashion collection took over my mind, and with it came a feeling of freedom. "I am Clara and I can," I muttered to myself, as I began scribbling sketches and notes about eco-friendly fabrics and innovative designs. With each line I drew, I felt my confidence returning. With a smile on my face, I decided I wouldn't let Sophie dictate the value of my work. I would choose to believe in myself and my achievements, no matter how small they seemed to others. That night, instead of letting myself get down, I let myself be boosted. What Sophie thought no longer mattered. My future was in my hands, and I was about to shape it. Sitting at my small work table, surrounded by fabric scraps and color swatches, I felt an excitement I hadn't experienced in years. The idea for my sustainable fashion startup was finally taking shape, and with each passing day, I felt closer to turning it into a reality. There was something liberating about working with my own hands, creating something that was not only beautiful but also ethical and conscious. "Clara, you need to stop looking at your cell phone," exclaimed my friend Anna, who was helping me organize the materials. "You won't be able to concentrate like that." "Sorry, I just can't stop thinking about how much fun Sophie must be having at her wedding. Look what she posted." I showed the Instagram photo, where Sophie was radiant next to her husband, surrounded by exotic flowers and breathtaking decor. "Let it go, Clara. You have something amazing on your hands here. Focus on what's really important," Anna insisted, trying to bring me back to reality. And she was right. I needed to focus. As the weeks went by, the project began to come to life. With each sample I sewed, with each meeting I scheduled with potential investors and partners, I felt a growing sense of pride. One night, while working late, I received a message from an influential fashion designer who wanted to meet me. My heart sank when I read those words. This could be the chance I've been waiting for. "Clara, you won't believe it," I shouted, calling Anna, who was in the kitchen. "I think I'm going to meet Daniel Ferreira next week. He wants to see my plays." Anna smiled, her eyes shining with excitement. "This is incredible. I always knew you had a special talent. Everything will be fine, I feel it." However, even in the midst of this whirlwind of positive emotions, insecurities did not leave me. The night before the meeting with Daniel, I couldn't sleep. The image of Sophie and her lavish wedding haunted me. I wondered if I was really doing the right thing. What if I fail? What if he doesn't like my work? These thoughts were spinning like a merry-go-round in my mind. On the day of the meeting, when getting ready, I decided to wear a blouse that I had made myself. It was a simple piece, but it conveyed the essence of my brand. Looking at myself in the mirror, I took a deep breath and murmured to myself, "You can do it, Clara. Believe in yourself." The meeting went beyond my expectations. Daniel was enthusiastic and full of ideas. He even offered advice on how to position my brand in the market. I left that meeting with a mix of euphoria and hope, feeling that I was finally on the right path. However, when I got home and saw yet another post from Sophie, this time sporting the new jewelry her husband had given her, a wave of insecurity washed over me again. She looks so happy. Maybe I'm wasting time with all this, I thought, a cruel little voice echoing in my head. So I took out my cell phone and sent Anna a message. "I'm thinking about giving up. Why does my life seem so insignificant compared to hers?" Second later, my phone vibrated. "Clara, don't let this get you down. Everyone has their own path. Remember what you have achieved so far. And if you give up now, you'll regret it," Anna replied, and her words were like a balm to my restless soul. With her support in mind, I decided not to let my insecurities lead me. I had a dream to follow, and nothing could take my focus away from it. However, Sophie's shadow still loomed over me, and I knew I would need to confront her at some point. Life wasn't a competition, but somehow the comparison I made with it made me uneasy. Moving forward, I continued to work hard on my project, but with each new achievement, it was hard not to look back and think about what could have been if things had been different. The journey was just beginning, and I was determined not to let Sophie or anyone else define my worth. Finally, the launch day of my collection had arrived. After months of hard work and dedication, I was about to show the world what I had created. The feeling of nervousness mixed with excitement enveloped me, like a storm of emotions about to manifest. The event was scheduled for the evening, and as I got ready, I couldn't stop my mind from going back to that previous meeting with Sophie. Her words still echoed in my ears, and I was determined not to let them dim my shine. As soon as I arrived at the launch site, I was greeted by smiles and applause. My heart was racing. People were here to see what I had done, and it made me proud. The presentation was a success, and the compliments began to flow. The reviews were positive, and I couldn't contain the joy that welled up inside me. I was finally being recognized for my work, and it was everything I ever wanted. "Clara, your collection is incredible. What are you going to do next?" asked a friend, while looking in awe at the pieces on display. "Thanks. I'm thinking about expanding into an accessories line. I want sustainable fashion to become accessible to everyone," I replied, my enthusiasm shining through in every word. That night was magical until, to my surprise, Sophie appeared. She entered the space with her confident smile, wearing a dress that looked like it cost a fortune. Her gaze swept the room, and the expression on her face changed as she noticed the success I was having. I could feel the tension in the air. "Look who we have here. The new fashion designer," she said, with a tone of voice that mixed sarcasm and disdain. "Congratulations, Clara. You finally got some attention." The comment hit me like an arrow. Instead of letting it get me down, I decided it was time to assert myself. What I had achieved was real and valuable, and I would not allow Sophie to throw her poisonous words at me again. "Thank you, Sophie. It's good to see you too. And by the way, I'm very happy that I managed to make my dream come true. And you, how are you with married life?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation light but with a hint of challenge. She smiled, but the coldness in her gaze was evident. "Ah, you know how it is. Just enjoying life with a man who can truly give me everything I ever wanted." The atmosphere between us became tense, and I knew that conversation would not end well. What should have been a time of celebration was turning into a battlefield. The friends around us began to notice the tension, and some tried to change the subject, but I couldn't let it go. It was my time to shine. "You know, Sophie, I've always admired your confidence. But we can't forget that success is not just measured by what we have, but by who we are and the battles we face to get here," I said, my voice steady. the room fell silent. I could feel the supportive looks from the other guests, and it gave me courage. I worked hard to launch this collection. Each piece carries a part of me, and I'm not here to be belittled by anyone, even if that person was a friend in the past. Sophie opened her mouth, but no words came out. The shock on her face was palpable, and I knew I had finally gotten to her. But the anger inside me wasn't completely satiated. I knew there was more that needed to be said, that there was a secret kept that could change everything, but I wasn't ready for that yet. The friends started talking to each other, and the uncomfortable atmosphere persisted. I was determined not to let that night end in defeat. I had fought so hard for this, and I wasn't going to let Sophie or anyone else diminish my worth. I looked around, saw the supportive faces, and felt a surge of determination. The real battle was just beginning, and I was ready to face it head-on. After the meeting, while the laughter and echoes of conversation still resonated in my mind, I was approached by Juliana, a childhood friend who has always had an investigative spirit. His usually bright eyes were now tinged with a concern that I couldn't ignore. "Clara, can I talk to you for a moment?" Juliana took me to a corner, away from the hubbub of the other girls. Anxiety settled in my stomach. What could she want? I knew the conversation would be about Sophie in some way. "I heard a few things about Sophie's life," Juliana began hesitantly. "I didn't want to tell you, but you need to know." "About what?" My voice sounded more strained than I intended. She looked around, as if avoiding anyone from overhearing. "About her marriage. Rumor has it that everything is not as perfect as it seems. I heard that her husband, he's not what she says he is. It seems she has some financial issues that she hides from you and the others." My heart jumped. The idea that Sophie's life, which seemed so bright, was marred by troubles gave me a strange feeling. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Because I know how you feel about her, and you deserve to know the truth. Sophie has always been competitive, and now that she's married, it seems like she's forgotten who you really are. I just wanted you to know that your life isn't as perfect as she tries to make it seem." Those words echoed in my mind, mixing with the insecurities Sophie had planted in me. I had always admired her, but now I saw a possibility that her life wasn't so ideal. The idea intrigued me, but at the same time, it awakened a desire not to care about it. I had my own story to tell. As the night progressed, I returned home with my mind full of thoughts. Whatever was happening in Sophie's life shouldn't affect mine. The truth is, as much as I wanted to believe I could be indestructible, her words still reverberated in my consciousness. "You're still alone, Clara. What have you really achieved?" Her voice seemed to echo in every corner of my room. That night, as I was preparing for an important event for my new fashion line, I received an anonymous message. My heart sank when I saw that it was a simple but devastating text. "You don't know who the real Sophie is. Be careful what you reveal." What did this mean? The message left me uneasy, but it also lit a fire inside me. I couldn't let fear or insecurity control me. I spent hours looking at myself in the mirror, trying to find the Clara I knew, the strong Clara who wouldn't let any criticism from Sophie get her down again. On the day of the event, nervousness mixed with adrenaline. I was determined to present myself with confidence. As I looked around, I saw familiar and unfamiliar faces, and a part of me filled with anticipation. I was no longer Clara who hid behind her insecurities. I was the founder of a sustainable fashion brand that deserved to be heard. As I talked about my project, the words flowed naturally. The passion I felt for my creation lit up my face, and for a brief moment, I forgot about Sophie and her criticisms. But when I looked at the back of the room, I saw his look, a mixture of contempt and curiosity. "Clara, do you really think this is something that can compare to what I built?" Sophie interrupted with a sardonic smile. "I'm not here to compete, Sophie. I'm here to show that each of us has our own journey and our own achievements," I replied, feeling the adrenaline rising. "And by the way, you can have a lot, but sincerity and love for what we do cannot be bought." The air felt tense between us, but there was a new resolve in me. I was no longer insecure Clara. I had a story that needed to be told, and I was willing to face any challenge that came my way. The party was in full swing when I arrived. The lights flashed in a golden tone, reflecting the opulence of the place, which looked like a scene from a movie. I couldn't believe I was there, in the same space as Sophie, the woman who had been my best friend and who now seemed to live in a completely different world from mine. Her laughter echoed in the room, mixed with the clinking of crystal glasses. With every step I took, tension grew inside me, as if every smile she exchanged with her millionaire husband was a disguised stab. "Clara, I'm glad you came." Sophie approached, enlightened, as if I were an old acquaintance. Those words, which should have sounded warm, made me even more apprehensive. The memory of the sarcastic comments at the last meeting stuck in my mind. I forced myself to smile. "Thank you, Sophie. The place is beautiful." "Yeah, life took a turn, didn't it?" she said, with a tone that seemed to mix irony and sincerity. "Have you seen the dress I'm wearing? It's from the designer's collection. A dream." She twirled, as if she wanted everyone to see the expensive and sophisticated piece. Yes, I saw it, I thought. And at the same time, I remembered my sustainable fashion collection, which had finally been launched. The contrast between our lives was stark. "And how are sales?" Sophie asked, but her gaze showed curiosity disguised as disdain. "They're doing great, thank you," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "People are responding positively to the conscious fashion proposition." The phrase sounded like a distant echo, and I wondered if she really cared. The conversation continued, full of small disguised attacks. Sophie always found a way to minimize my achievements. Every time she spoke, a part of me shattered. Until, in a moment of lucidity, I realized that I was tired of hiding behind smiles. It was time to act. With my heart racing, I paused and took a deep breath. "Sophie," I began, catching her attention and that of everyone around us. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to me. "I need to tell you something." She raised an eyebrow, as if ready to ridicule me again. "What happened, Clara? Are you going to tell me that you won Best Friend of the Year?" I ignored the provocation and continued. "In fact, I am the heiress to a fortune left by a distant uncle. Life has brought me more surprises than you can imagine." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of the gazes, now fixed on Sophie. Her expression changed, and I saw a mixture of confusion and disbelief form on her face. "What are you saying?" Sophie asked, but her voice was shaking, almost as if she was beginning to realize the gravity of what I had revealed. "I'm saying that while you get high on ostentation and despise who I am, I've built a life based on values that really matter. Money isn't everything, but it's a part of my story," I said, feeling the adrenaline pumping through my veins. The party that was once full of laughter was now at a standstill. People whispered among themselves, and I could see the change in Sophie's eyes. "Clara, I didn't know," she finally said, but I could see it was more of an apology than a genuine acknowledgement. "Maybe you should have worried more about friendship than appearance," I replied, feeling a rush of liberation. "I don't need your validation, Sophie. I learned that true wealth lies in who we are and what we achieve with effort and dedication." The words hung in the air, heavy and full of meaning. At that moment, I realized I no longer needed her approval. What once hurt me has now made me stronger. True friendship is not measured in material goods, but in sincerity and mutual respect. While Sophie was stuck in a sea of uncertainty, I felt more confident than ever. And even though the path ahead was still uncertain, I knew I had found my voice.